As time goes on and you continue pinning, you are going to need to be able to measure your success, and Pinterest Analytics helps us do that. It's funny how things come full circle. Years ago, I suggested not even looking at Pinterest Analytics and only focusing on the information that you could gather from Google Analytics to determine how your Pinterest progress was going. These days, Google Analytics 4 doesn't really give us a lot of information about what's happening over at Pinterest. Pinterest referral traffic is not even fully properly recorded in Google Analytics. A lot of it gets lost to direct traffic. That's how Google Analytics records it. So if what you're seeing in Google Analytics does not line up with what you're seeing in Pinterest Analytics, I would honestly not panic about it. Generally, Pinterest Analytics seems to be pretty reliable. That said, there are a couple things that can affect the way that your Google Analytics looks, and I'm going to show you what those things are, considerations to keep in mind if your traffic doesn't seem to be properly reflected in Google Analytics. Let's poke around in here and make sure that we fully understand everything that we're looking at in Pinterest Analytics. So before we do that, I just want to say again, this is an old abandoned account. I haven't even pinned on this account in more than a year because it is shadow banned. So don't mind the sad analytics of this account. All right, when you come in here, go to Analytics Overview. That's the screen we're on right now. It defaults to the last 30 days. I strongly suggest that you always be adjusting your date range so that you're knowing what the trend is over the last 60 days, over the last 90 days. And on this first screen, you can adjust this all the way back to a year and a half. Pinterest won't give you the specific pin or board data back that far. It'll only let you have data back from 6 months out. So it's really important that you are in here looking at your data often and making a note of what is your best performing pin for June and for July and for August, and what is your best performing board in the same time frame. Because in a year from now, when you want to come back and look and see what performed well in June, you won't be able to. You can see data 6 months back. And so it's good to set this screen and take some screenshots now and then too, because later when you want to look at it again and you can't, it's really frustrating. I want to point out these more filters here and just explain a few often misunderstood concepts around them. So at the top here, you can filter by different audience demographics in case you ever want to target specific audiences. This might be useful information. I don't use it that often, but I know lots of people who do. The part of the filters that I really want you to understand is down here. If you regularly save third-party pins, if you create them on third-party websites, sometimes Pinterest will attribute you as the creator of those pins, and the outbound clicks or saves for those pins that you are the creator of can be added into your analytics and can skew your stats that you're looking at, even though those pins don't lead to your account. Similarly, if other people regularly create pins for your website on your account, maybe you have particularly savable content, then their pins can also be reflected in your analytics because their pins are sending outbound clicks to your website. And those will show up as others' pins. I'll show you down here when we get down to the next step. I'll show you what that looks like. But if you regularly save third-party pins, what you will want to be aware of is that you might want to set this button so that it's only showing stats for your claimed account. And then you'll want to leave this at all so that you know whether others' pins or your pins are sending traffic to your website, and then click apply. All right, so down here under top pins, this is where you'll see the differentiation between whether it's considered your created pin or others created pins. And it's normal to have some of both inside your analytics. If you have an extremely savable type of content, the kind that other people regularly save, you might see more others pins here. Or if you do a poor job of keeping your account healthy and targeting keywords really well with your pins and pinning regularly, you might see more others pins here. On the flip side of that, if you do a poor job of making your very pinnable images available to your audience to pin, then you might see only your pins here. And that's basically what that means. I'm sure there's other considerations as well that aren't coming to my mind right now about those, but as long as you understand the difference, then it'll help you understand what you're seeing in your analytics. Just to clarify completely, if you go out here to your created tab, things that appear here in your created tab, they will appear as your pins. Things that appear here in others people's created tab, whether they lead to your website or their websites, will appear as others pins in your Pinterest analytics. Okay. So your top pins are defaultly sorted by impressions and pins that have been performing in the last 30 days. If you want to just see pins that you've created in the last 30 days, if you want to know how your new pins are doing, you can check this box. I don't pin on this account anymore. So it's not surprising that the only pin from the last 30 days that's had one impression is somebody else's created pin. In general, I don't expect pins created in the past 30 days to be performing that well, so I don't really ever check that box. I often check my top pins by impressions, but also by outbound clicks. I like to ask myself how my top pins by outbound clicks compare to my top pins by impressions. And if there's vast differences between my pins that are getting impressions and my pins that are getting outbound clicks, I want to ask myself why. What could I do to improve on those pins that are getting good impressions to help them with their outbound clicks? I like to open my top 10, 15, 20 pins in new tabs, and then inside each one of those, drill down to see more stats. And then inside each one of those, set the date range back 180 days. I like to be able to compare many pins side by side like this so that I can start to see trends across my content. What I see when I look at this account is not a lot. That's not surprising for an account that is completely shadow banned. But if you're pinning a lot of seasonal content and you're regularly pinning, you should start to see trends between certain keywords and certain pin styles at different times of the year. If you keep scrolling down, you can get a glance at your top boards by impressions, and I also like to look at my top boards by outbound clicks. Again, I need to ask myself, do my top boards by impressions match my top boards by outbound clicks? And if not, I need to brainstorm why not. Write this information down every few months because these will change, and you'll find yourself wondering, oh, was that board ever strong in the last year? And if you don't have it written down, you really can't tell. I think the last thing that I should have mentioned when we were up here is that lately on Pinterest, I've really been reflecting on what engagement rate might mean for our account. So this is different than engagements. This is the percentage of your pins that are out there that are being engaged with. And while I can't prove it, I'm starting to wonder if a quick decline in engagement rate might contribute to a lesser consideration of your account in the platform as a whole. Perhaps if you've been pinning at a really steady rate for a long time and your engagement rate has been really steady, and you suddenly really quickly increase your amount of pins but they're very poor pins, say. And so your engagement rate doesn't travel upwards with your impression rate or your pinning rate. Maybe that's a negative reflection on your account as a whole. I don't have any concrete evidence around this thought, but it's just something to be aware of. Same with save rate. I think that highly savable pins contribute to the health of an account. I don't worry as much about outbound click rate because I don't think that Pinterest is concerned with how well we do at getting outbound clicks. That's more of a concern that we have for ourselves. I just wanted to point those out because sometimes people confuse these metrics with these metrics. So engagement rate is different than engagements, and that engagement rate is the percentage of the whole and its trend over time. All right, I think that's everything inside Pinterest Analytics that I want you to be aware of, to be watching. In general, we can see that an account is either trending up or trending down. Remember when you're looking at your Pinterest Analytics that nothing goes up and up and up forever. It is very normal to see downtrends at different times of the year, and it is not a reason to panic. Pinterest is like a roller coaster. We go up and up and up, and then we go down, and then we go up again. Just be watching your analytics, watching the trends that unfold inside your analytics so that you can make educated choices about the pins that you're going to create, about the keywords you're going to target, and that you can grow your Pinterest traffic snowball.